Hey game developers, Shashank here from Sansat. In this video, you will learn how to add collectibles to your game. Consider this as a collectible. When player collides with the collectible, we can actually increase the player health, or the jump force, move speed, or even we can change the color of the player, the size, and many more. Before coding, let's see how can we achieve this. Consider this as the player and this as one of the collectible. When player collides with the collectible completely or partially, we can actually perform some things. If we want to increase the player health by 1 or more, we can actually do this, which will actually increase the player points. Depending on the points to increase, we can also change the color of the player, the size, and many more. After performing the thing that we want when the player collides with the collectible, we don't want the collectible in our scene. Therefore, we'll destroy the collectible. In this scene, I have just added a cube and a sphere. I'll set each trigger to true. I'll rename this sphere to collectible. I'll set each trigger to true because I only want to detect collisions and I don't want the objects to actually collide with it. To this, I'll add a script called collectible. So first, we need to detect collisions, that is when other objects collide with the collectible. First we need to detect collisions, that is when the player or other objects collide with the player. We need to perform some things. Before performing the things that we want, we need to check whether the player has collided with the collectible. Therefore, we'll say void. As we had set each trigger to true, we need to say on trigger enter, and we need to pass one argument, which is collider, and the variable name, I'll call it as obj. This function detects collision, which means when the objects collide with the collectible, or when the collectible collides with the object, the things inside this function will be executed. If other objects has a collider as well as a rigid body. I'll just say debug.log and I'll see Sam's here. So now, whenever the player collides with the collectible or collectible collides with the player, the message Sans should be displayed. So yep, no message is being displayed because we had not added rigid body to the player. Therefore, let's add a rigid body. I'll set use gravity to false because I don't want the player to experience gravity. So now, when the objects get collided, the things inside this function will be executed, and therefore this message has been displayed over here. So now when the objects collide, first we need to check whether the collided object is player. Therefore we'll say obj.compare_tag. Here we'll say player. So what we are doing here, when the collectible collides with something, the things inside this function are executed. Here we are checking if the collided object has a tag called player. We are just comparing the collided object tag with this tag. We are checking if the collided object tag is player. I'll set the player tag to player. So for now I'll just say debug.log player collided. Else I'll say debug.log other. So now I'll hit play. When the object which has a tag called player collides with the collectible, the message player collided should be displayed, and yes, the message has displayed. When other objects which doesn't have a tag called player collides with the collectible, the message other must be displayed and the message is displayed. So when player collides with the collectible, if you want to increase the player health, first you need to get the script which has been attached or added to the player. So here I have a script called player attached to the cube, which has a few variables and nothing else. If you want to increase the player health, first you need to get the object and then the player script and then the variable. Here if the collided object is player, the things inside this if block will be executed. So therefore, as we know that the collided object is player, we'll say obj.getComponent, we'll get the player script, and then we'll access the health variable by saying .health. I'll increase the health value by 7. So now whenever the player collides with the collectible, health must be set to 7 as its initial value is 0. Make it collide. Its health is set to 7. When it collides again, health is set to 14. If you want to increase the jump force or the value of any variables, follow the same method. You need to just change the variable name and maybe the value that you wanna set to the variable. So after the player has collided with the collectible, we need to actually destroy the collectible because we don't need it. Therefore, whenever the player collides with the collectible, we'll say destroy the collectible. If you want to increase the player size when the player collides with the collectible, we need to just say obj.transform. Before setting its scale, first we need to access the transform and then the scale. So therefore, first we have accessed the transform. Now we'll say .local scale. As scale has 3 values, we'll say new vector 3 and we'll set its scale to 3. So now when player collides with the collectible, its size is set to 3, 3 and 3 and the collectible has been destroyed. If you want to change the color of the player, first you need to get the renderer, then the materials, and then we'll change the color of that material. Therefore first we need to get the renderer, then the material, and then the color. We'll set a random color to the player, therefore I'll say random.color_HSV. So now when the player collides with the collectible, its health will be increased by 7, its scale will be set to 3, 3 and 3, and also its color will be changed to a random color. So yep, every time a random color is assigned to the player. If you only want the effect that you had made to last for a certain time, we can actually create a coroutine, and after a certain interval of time we can reset its scale or color or anything else which you want. But here I won't create a coroutine. Instead I'll create a method, I'll call it reset, and over here I'll reset its scale to 1, 1 and 1. Here you don't have the access to obj because its scope lasts over here. So therefore I can actually create a game object. I can call it player, and when player collides with the collectible, I'll set player equals obj.gameObject. So now here, instead of obj, we can actually say player. After the player has collided with the collectible, we will invoke. So invoke takes a string and the time as an argument. So the string is the method name which I want to call, and I'll set the time to 3. So invoke is just used to call a method after some interval of time. So instead of using a coroutine here, I'm using the invoke method. So whenever the player collides with the collectible, I'm changing the health value, the color and the scale. After 3 seconds, I'm resetting its scale to 111. But this doesn't work. If we check this out, it should actually not work. I'll say you the reason later. So when the player collides with the collectible, yes, the scale has increased, and even after 3 seconds, its scale is not set back to 1, 1 and 1. Do you know the reason? Well, okay, I'll say you why. When the player collides with the collectible, actually the collectible is destroyed. And if the game object is itself destroyed, the method is not called after 3 seconds. So therefore, instead of destroying the object, we can actually destroy these two things. Therefore, I'll say destroy get component, the collider, and the renderer. Yep. And after 3 seconds, we are setting the player scale back to 1, 1 and 1, and then we can destroy this particular collectible or the game object. So now, whenever the player collides with the collectible, its scale is set to 3, 3 and 3. Notice that the collectible has not been destroyed, only the mesh renderer and the collider has been destroyed. So after 3 seconds, and after setting the player scale back to 1, 1 and 1, the collectible is destroyed. Now it is an empty game object in the scene, which has a mesh filterer and a script. Yeah, after 3 seconds, its scale is set to 1, 1 and 1, and the collectible has been destroyed. By following this method, you can make any kind of collectible. In your 2D games, you need to just include 2D here as well as here, because it is a 2D game and no need to alter any of the things over here. It works perfect. That's it in this video. If you want to download the script, or if you want to support me via Patreon, or if you want to join Sansart's Discord server, you can click the respective links which are available in the description. Thanks for watching.